think that by me doing this work, by me telling the story, by me being able to express my horror, my suffering that I suffered while I was in solitary confinement, makes me a good advocate because I can express it, and people, when they hear it and they see it, they can feel it. My name is Victor Pate. I am the New York statewide organizer for the New York City Campaign for Alternatives to Isolated Confinement. Right now, as I sit here and talk, I'm transformed back to the yard. It gets easier, but it's the reliving that story that you tell. It doesn't take but a moment to be in the yard, to be transformed back to that yard. Most of the time, you hear people banging on the walls, or you hear people talking to themselves. You may hear that, and you may hear nothing. What led me into this, I can say almost reluctantly, my experience of 15 years of incarceration in our New York State prisons and jails. My first actual campaign that I was involved in was basically to abolish Rockefeller drug laws, which was one of the worst drug laws that ever came out, and it affected so many people, disproportionately people of color. It devastated communities, it devastated people's lives, and I just knew there was something that I had to do. Solitary confinement does not help the safety, does not help the security, and it definitely does not help anyone who has mental health issues. This is not an answer to corrective behavior. So we ask people to do an action once they attend our meetings. Take this conversation to someone else. We need the public to get involved. We need the public to call their legislators. We need the public to call these prisons and jails. Everybody can do something to help the cause, but the most important thing is that you do something about this horrible condition and situation that we're dealing with, and the treatment that people in our prisons and jails are suffering under right now.
The Gilchrist experience. Today, that's when I got my family here, Victor Pate. Victor and I have been doing shows for a good 10
years.
10, maybe more.
Yeah, about 10 years. I know, 10 stuck in my head, maybe more, like you say.
So what we do, we try to make people who spend time in jail know that their struggle not in vain, that a lot of the problems that you can suffer from being black in America. And Victor, you're a good example of coming out and redeeming yourself socially, mentally. Tell us one of the most difficult problems that you have. Huh?
I'm still a work in progress.
And it's been how many years you've been out?
25, 26, going on 26 years, 2025, I will have been on, God willing, 26 years.
26 years.
And just saying, being home is a lot that goes into just being home. You can be home and not be present.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a result of collateral damages and things that happen to people that is long term.
Mm-hmm.
And so the process for me is re-entry is consistent and is continuous. And no matter how long I've been home, I still have challenges. And I still suffer from the traumas of being incarcerated. But I think that for myself, how I've been able to deal with this and address my issues is that I address it head on. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it does not do something to me, because
Mm-hmm.
it does, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying it becomes a lot less difficult to deal with by talking about it and by doing the work that I do. So for me, this work is not work. This is therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
So this is how I've been able
Supporters looking to shut down Rikers Island are calling out Mayor Eric Adams, saying his
Okay, transition. We transitioning.
Go ahead.
So for me, it's a continuous, it's a process, it's ongoing. But for me, what has grounded me, what has kind of sort of helped me deal, is doing the work that I do.
Okay.
And that for me is therapeutic. So by engaged and involving in this coalition work is, to me, very therapeutic. So for me, this is kind of sort of like what helps me, you know, stay balanced.
You're fighting the problems that you had to contend with when you were in it.
Yeah, and I know that people are still suffering through those things, and it's even worse now.
It
was bad then, it's worse now. And
It's
I know
worse
my
now.
comrade here can definitely relate to that, that even doing, I'm quite sure when Darren was incarcerated, situations was bad. So he came through an era of incarceration, right? I came through an era of incarceration, but you would
The
think that it
difference-
would got better, but
You
it got
went
worse.
in at what year? What year did you go in?
Oh, I was in 70s, like the
Oh,
70s.
70s.
Yeah,
So there's
70s.
20-year
Yeah,
difference
they
between the two of
took
them.
me out. Oh, I was missing. All of the 70s, I was missing.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that even incarcerated, we all experience the same or similar things. But what I'm saying is that it has progressively gotten worse. You would
Solitary
believe that
confinement.
over a period of time, there would, I mean, I'm not saying nothing has changed, but I'm just saying it hasn't changed the way it should have changed, and the cultural aspect about that has not changed. Not much has really changed deeply, but on the surface. So I think that there's a lot more work to do, and this is my comrade here, and
Well,
we kind of sort of like work.
you've-
But
you-
he's a leader in his own
Mm.
his own arena.
Well, you dealt with solitary confinement.
Right.
There's a lot of progress on that.
Yeah.
All right.
And a lack
So-
of not progress, especially with the recent local law 42 that addresses solitary confinement on Rikers Island. And the mayor putting in an executive order that actually suspended its implementation. So right now,
What?
although the law was passed,
Is that right?
yeah, although the law was passed, it was supposedly had been implemented July 27th, one of the days. And the day before the date came of implementation, he put in an executive law which basically stops the actual implementation of the bill that was passed by a supermajority veto override vote to get that bill passed.
When did this happen? When did this happen?
In July.
In July.
Yeah, we got the bill passed in January
Yeah.
by a supermajority veto over. They had to override his veto because he vetoed the bill when we got it passed. And the city council came back and overrode his veto.
So this is Eric Adams.
Eric Adams.
Oh, that's
Who you thought it was? who do you think it was? Was
Cuomo or something.
no, it was our current mayor. Our
I'm way
current,
back.
yeah, our
with
current
Cuomo.
mayor who was in so much trouble.
Eric Adams?
Yeah, and he's in so much trouble, but he did that. So
But he
that's-
knows the deal. Well, Eric Adams is a surprise to a lot of things.
Mhm.
All right. You want to introduce Darren?
So
and
my
how-
comrade here, Darren, is a legend in his own right, a leader,
Oh, okay.
and actually he is one of the co-directors of the Freedom Agenda. They are the lead organization in the Close Rikers campaign, and have been
Okay.
doing some great, phenomenal work that we all support. The
Mhm.
work that Freedom Agenda is leading us on, and this.
Well,
I'm glad
before
that
we
he finally
start
got
talking
on.
to Darren, I'm going to run this video you sent to us. And how much of it's a long video, so we'll run maybe 4 minutes of it.
Yeah,
You tell me when you think we should stop.
Yep, sure.
We'll run item 2, the new one you downloaded.
Is that the one you was at, right?
The city's largest jail a reality. CBS's John Diaz joins live from City Hall with more now. John.
Yeah, Mayor, good afternoon to you and many who rallied out here today saying that the money is there. The city has the money within their budget to successfully shut down Rikers Island, but they claim, though, the city is just using this money in all the wrong places. Now, ahead of the City Council Criminal Justice Preliminary Budget hearing Friday, dozens rallied in front of the City Hall steps, calling on the closure of Rikers Island. Almost 200 city organizations make up the campaign campaign to close Rikers, and many reps showed up. Now, they claim that at the rate in which Mayor Eric Adams is moving, the city will not meet the legal 2027 deadline to shut Rikers Island down. Local leaders saying that the borough-based jails won't be ready, and many at this rally, well, they want the mayor to deliver a budget next year that supports the closure of Rikers by moving resources from the Department of Correction to crucial community needs like supportive housing and mental health treatment centers.
Closing Rikers Island cannot be delayed. Right. And the city needs to take steps to deliver on its legal and moral obligation now.
It just appears that there is no real want or belief that we should close Rikers Island by 2027, and I think we have to at least get on the same page and have a plan to how to do it. Omitting it altogether is not a good move, and it wouldn't be the first time that the administration just skips over a law that the council has passed.
I didn't see one.
Now, the commissioner of the city's Department of Probation was questioned during today's hearing and said despite the rise in cost of services and a decrease in their budget, they have been committed to providing the best services. Now, we reached out to the mayor's office for a comment, and just minutes ago, his administration got us a comment saying in part, quote, "It is clear that the plan approved under the last administration created serious challenges for our ability to keep New Yorkers safe." They also went on to say that the COVID-19 pandemic played a big role in this whole process. For now, we are live this afternoon from City Hall. John Diaz, CBS 2 News.
Most people have no clue that in 2024, the best way to make
Welcome back. Darian, give us an idea what you're doing there.
Yes, so I'm a co-director of an organization called Freedom Agenda, which is a grassroots member-led organization dedicated to organizing people and communities directly impacted by incarceration in order to achieve decarceration and system transformation. And Freedom Agenda, along with over 190 organizational partners, is leading a campaign to close Rikers Island. And the clip that the audience just saw was a rally on the steps of City Hall in response to the mayor's comments regarding that the previous administration had caused some challenges in regards to decarceration and caused some challenges in regards to investments in the communities, and all these organizational partners, over 190 organizations, said that we could actually make investments in communities in our city that could prevent incarceration for people like with mental health issues, prevent incarceration, reincarceration for people who are unhoused, and et cetera. And the money is there,
Graham, you want to add something to all this?
Well, I have a friend who was a correction officer who said about 40 years ago that the Department of Correction was in disarray, that Rikers Island was not the place that anybody really wanted to be. They were understaffed. There were times when he had 2 tiers by himself. The morale there is very low with the officers, and the disrespect of a lot of officers with regard to the inmates led to other problems. He himself never had a problem with an inmate. He treated them with respect, which was why when other officers never came in, he could handle 2 tiers by himself. And the administration had a problem with the fact that he was respected by the inmates, and there was never an incident on any of the tours that he worked.
How many people is that? 2 tiers?
I don't know how many are in
About 30
in a tier, I don't know.
About 30-something people per tier, if I'm not mistaken.
30-something per tier, so about 60
I
people.
kind of sort of like remembering, I was in cell 15, I remember that, and then it was like, like about 15 more cells, so I'm going to presume it was like 30. Because I was 15, it was like half the tier, and then
So
we had
tell
like
me
the
how you-
other half.
Tell me how you got involved with all this Rikers. You spend how much time in Rikers?
Yeah, I spent 19 months on Rikers Island as
19 months you spent on
as a teenager at the age of 17.
okay.
When the population was over 20,000 people detained there. And
What year is this, 94?
this is like 92.
92.
Yeah, and then you know,
And they were locking up everybody.
yeah, this was during the war on drugs, the tough on crime era.
Yeah,
And when mass incarceration started to bloom in across the country, and you know, and when I was released and returned home, you know, about 2 decades later, I heard about the story Khalif Browder.
Yes.
Yeah, Khalif Browder. He was falsely accused for stealing a $70 book bag, and he spent 3 years on Rikers Island. And you know, prosecutors, you know, was telling him, all you have to say, plead guilty, and you'll get time served and go home. But but Khalif understood that if you pled guilty, he have a felony on his record, and he will be basically discriminated against from all types of opportunities for the rest of his life because of a felony. You know, everything from college opportunities, from job opportunities, even housing opportunities. So, you know, after 3 years, you know, he spent 2 of those years of solitary confinement, experienced a lot of brutality from people detained and staff as well. And he was released, and because of the trauma he went through, you know, he spoke about it on various news outlets, and he took his own life. Eventually, took his life. So experiencing that, you know, like, wow, here it is 2 decades later, and the same brutality, the same out of sight, out of mind, and culture of violence that exists on Rikers Island exists when I was there, you know, 2 decades ago, and something that needed to be done about that.
So how did you want to tell us how you got put in jail?
Yeah, I was incarcerated at the age of 17, being accomplice to a robbery, and you know, a lot of journalists you ask that, and always think how, you know, anybody who experienced Rikers Island, you know, regardless of what they've done, shouldn't be treated inhumanely. Under this administration, unfortunately, 33 people had lost their lives in the Department of Corrections. Thousands are suffering, you know, from mental health and medical neglect. And yeah, it's, you know, every mayor for the last 90 years thought that they could fix Rikers, thought that they could reform Rikers Island, but the only solution is closure.
So you feel no matter what you did wrong, you didn't deserve that kind of treatment?
Yeah, the punishment is being isolated from society, and
But
Department of Corrections is supposed to be about correction, not punishment. So the abuse, the medical neglect, you know, the being exposed to a culture of violence, that's not part of a working system supposed to be doing. It's about rehabilitation, and unfortunately, Rikers Island is not about that. It's about, you know, punishment, abuse, and neglect, and it can't be fixed, and it can't be reformed. And we believe that we can have a better system than we currently have for these several decades.
the difference between you and Khalif Browder, and he was completely innocent.
Yeah.
It was his first night out. I spent a lot of time on that case. I met the mother and the brother, and I really got involved with that. Graham and I did a lot of shows on Khalif, and he was strong as far as not admitting something he did wrong. But you, in your case, you were guilty.
Yeah. You know, 90% of the people on Rikers Island are there pre-trial, meaning they haven't been convicted of anything.
Right.
You know,
And so
and
they're innocent until proven guilty.
So the presumption of innocence, we still have to, like, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's only a small population of there that serving city sentences of a year or less who are detained on Rikers Island, but 90% of the people on Rikers Island, they're pre-trial.
Good point.
I would say.
Most of them, 90% of the people there haven't been to trial.
Yeah. The reason why they're still incarcerated is because they don't have the money to pay bail. You know, but if you're wealthy, we wouldn't spend a night on Rikers Island.
Yeah.
You know, until you've seen your day in your court.
So that should be one of the first. What do you think of that, Graham?
Well, you know,
changing
people
the
need
bell.
to understand the verbiage. A jail, Rikers Island is the city jail. As stated, no one in Rikers Island has been convicted of a crime. A prison is where people who have been convicted of a
Yeah.
crime are housed. So the city, I remember in Brownsville, they were to build a high school about 25 years ago, and they built a detention center, a prison in Brownsville, right on East New York Avenue, a block from the 73rd precinct. And the city was promoting this program to house people in and near the communities wherein they live. That program really hasn't gone to the lengths that it should have. They tore down the Brooklyn House of Detention. Well, let me step back. The facility on East New York Avenue is for youth. All right, that's for youth. It's not for adults.
Right.
But they tore down the Brooklyn House of Detention. And I don't know what
That's right.
is to replace that building. There's construction going on. I don't know if it's still going to be the Department of Detention. But there have been long-term problems, even when I was working, and that's almost 30 years ago. There were serious issues with Rikers Island. And I knew that there were young men that I had arrested, 16, 17, who had committed felonies. One who had committed felonies, another who I arrested for a homicide. And I really felt for them because I said, you can't handle this. You're a kid, you're not a grown man. And both of them, the boy for the homicide, he got 17 years at age 17. So he went from Rikers into the state system. The other boy doing the robberies also went into the state system. He spent 7 years. And right after 9/11, I was in Manhattan, parking my car in a garage, and a gentleman called me by name, and I looked, I didn't remember. He said, the Astoria Projects. He was the father of the young boys that I had arrested for those robberies. And I said, how is your son? He said it was a hard lesson for him, but he's good, he's okay. He did his time, he got out early, and he was working for FedEx and had gotten married. So, and I always told the guys, I said, you have to consider who you are coming out, not who you are going in. Start on that today. Don't wait for the day that you come through that gate to try and figure out who you are. You've made a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake. There are mistakes we can come back from, and there are some we cannot. But you have an opportunity in your incarceration is to become the man that you should be when you walk out of the gate. You did what you did at age 17, but who are you coming out at 25 or 30, whatever it is? And that is what you have to work on every day, regardless of the people around you, because that's a temporary condition. You will get out, you will have the opportunity to resume your life, and it is going to be difficult, not saying it is, but an individual really has to work on who they are in spite of the surrounding features.
Thank you, Graham.
Yeah.
How does this apply to you, Darian?
Yeah.
You spent 20 years
Yep.
for something you were guilty of.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that you were wrongfully convicted?
No, I took full responsibility for my actions, and I always quote Brian Stevenson, the famous attorney who wrote the book Just Mercy. He said, "No one should be judged by the worst thing you've done in your life," you know, and that's because like was just mentioned, people made bad decisions in their life, and they shouldn't be judged for that bad decision for their entire life, because we're human beings, and I remember. Conditions in communities. There's the thing called crime-generated factors. Incarcerated men in the late 70s with Dr. Kenneth Clark. The doctor who did the psychological test with the black doll and the white doll. He collaborated with incarcerated men and found out that over 75% of New York State's prison population came from 7 New York City neighborhoods. The South Bronx, Harlem, Lower East Side, Bronzeville, Bedford-Stuyvesant, East New York, and South Jamaica, Queens. 75%. So this is like over 70,000 people in the New York State prison system. They came from these 7 neighborhoods. And one of the things that all these neighborhoods had in common, it was decades of divestment, you know, high unemployment amongst, you know, black men, you know, all these things that which is high crime generated factors. And these are the same communities that's funneling, that's a pipeline to Rikers Island.
Right.
And so the campaign to close Rikers, you know, survivors of Rikers like myself, family members who lost loved ones on Rikers Island, and our organizational allies to provide like mental health services and housing came together and said we can have a better system than we have today. So in 2019, City Council, the city adopted a plan to close Rikers by August 31st, 2027, and come to a borough-based system. So Rikers Island is 10 jails on Rikers Island and a jail next to the court in each borough. So right now, as was mentioned earlier, the Brooklyn House is being demolished and is going to be replaced with a facility that has programming space, that has a medical unit on each unit, that has visiting space and those things that that could produce a more healthier and more humane environment, which the facilities didn't have previously. And then the city is going to actually, once these is constructed in the Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, and in Queens, then they're going to be transferred the rest of the remaining population into the borough facilities, and the city is going to save $2 billion a year. And that money we want to go back into the communities that's been impacted by Rikers Island, like the South Bronx, like Harlem, like Bronzeville, and that's money that we are actually going to have to fight for, because all these other city agencies, they're going to want a piece of that pie. But we say every single dime should go back into our communities that's been impacted by Rikers, so we can have housing, affordable housing, mental health services, and those things.
That's right.
You're lucky if you get any of it.
Yeah, we got to fight for it. Just like I remember, as if it was yesterday, when we launched the campaign to close Rikers in 2016, former Mayor de Blasio was asked, what do you think about these advocates calling for the closure of Rikers Island? He said, oh, that's a fantasy.
That's the what?
He said that was a fantasy.
Ah, okay.
And then with less than 1 year, we pushed them and pulled them, and New Yorkers stood up, and he came out in public and said, we're going to close Rikers Island. And in 2019, we got the law passed.
And it's still not closed.
Yeah, it's a process with the borough-based facilities.
This year?
Yeah. So
Eric Adams vetoed the bill.
Yeah, he vetoed the bill around the solitary confinement, with Victor was a leader on.
That was there. That was a specific bill that addresses, people going in, right? Or before they get in, a process that will allow what they consider de-escalation. So before you just take a person, just throw them in the cell and leave them there, there's a process, what's called the de-escalation period, where you give a person a chance enough to calm down, and professionals talk to them and see if they can talk them down into whatever that level they are at that particular time. And like I say, he stopped the bill from being implemented by putting in an executive order saying that there was a state, here's what he said, that there was a state of emergency on Rikers Island that will prevent them, meaning the administration, from implementing the local law 42, which is the bill that was passed that says that you can't place people in solitary confinement, but there's a process that has to happen before a person can even be adjudicated going into solitary. And he put the stop on
Are they doing that now?
every week. He renews this executive order every week. So since July, the day before the targeted implementation date, he initiated this executive order, and every week it's renewed. So that means that the bill, as long as that executive order is in place, cannot be implemented, so they say. I mean, as far as the protocol goes, you can't implement it because of that executive order. And just because. He said just because he's talking about a state of emergency.
And what's ironic is that during this long fight and struggle, advocacy and organizing to end solitary confinement in the New York City jail system, the Department of Corrections said solitary confinement did not exist. They said what they had was restrictive, what it was called?
Restrictive housing.
Restrictive housing.
Enhanced housing
Yeah.
and all this stuff, except they say they didn't have solitary. And I know that's a lie because I'm a regular visitor to Rikers Island monthly on a different coalition. And we actually went to a solitary confinement unit. But they say solitary confinement doesn't exist. And now even more so, this recent report by former licensed clinical social worker who worked on Rikers Island, worked in the mental health unit, came out and said how they were keeping people with seriously mental health issues in a solitary confinement state by not allowing them to come out for days and months at a time, not providing them with the mental health treatment that they're supposed to get, and even worse, not providing medications. She just said this.
Yeah, it was an expose.
Monday?
About a week ago. It was a
days,
big expose
Yeah.
on the news.
And she just exposed it all, and it just told them right out what they're doing to people, as well as having people in solitary confinement. So how can they continue to say that there's no solitary confinement?
The life of what do they call? The guards, the prison guards.
Corrections officers.
They have a hell of a life. They're spending 24 hours. They're spending 24 hours a day. Their entire lives is in solitude.
How
do you get to be a?
Here's one thing I just want to say really quickly. So when you talk about correctional officers, right? And what they experience as well as the people that are incarcerated, right? What we're saying with the closed Rikers, with the solitary coalition and a few others, is that there can be a more humane system of accountability if people have to be locked up and locked away or separated from the general society. But there's a more humane way that we can be holding people accountable while preparing them for reintegration back into the community. The system that they have now does not work like that. Darren spoke about, the punishment and all that stuff there, that even being incarcerated, not being convicted of anything, you don't lose your rights to be treated humanely. And I think that's what the core of it all.
Have you seen a situation where you felt the prisoner deserved that kind of treatment?
Never.
No one, everybody has a presumption of innocence. Everybody has the right to be treated humanely. Human rights is international.
Right.
So if we cross that line and start violating those human rights, how as we as a democracy can point the other finger to other nations that's not treating their citizens and people with human rights. I think it was like I forgot who it was a quote that said that a nation is judged by how they treat their most marginalized people. Not by the most privileged and wealthy and esteemed people in the society. So how we treat our most marginalized, how our most vulnerable people, is a testament, and it's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Graham, you were a police officer for 20 years. Yet you're a nice guy, God-fearing. You don't fit the profile. All right.
I didn't want to be a police officer. That's the first thing. It wasn't on my radar to be a police officer. As you know, I was in full-time ministry before I went into the police department. So my
could you
attitude
be
towards people.
Answer this question: could you be a correction officer? Could you have done that job?
I doubt that because I wasn't called to that. These jobs you have to be called to. You just don't take a test and go in. I believe there are 5 professions you have to be called to. It's law enforcement, medicine, law, education, and the clergy. You have to be called. If you weren't called, then there will be a problem. Because those 5 professions, you're dealing with the lives of people, which is most critical. There were There was a guy I arrested for a felony charge. He was on parole. He owed the state 8 years. He cooperated with us, and he never served another day in jail. And I had the arrest expunged from the record. Those are the things that can be done. And it helped to turn his life around. He got married, he got a job, and he used to come to my house. It was just, you know, there are situations that people wind up in that shouldn't totally define them for the rest of their life. So we have to work with people, especially people that want to make a change. They need to have an opportunity to see the different paths that go. And if the city has the finances, my wife and I were talking about this just today down in Nostrand and Fulton. The mental illness that you see on the street in that strip, but none of the people are being helped. So the question is, how did they wind up there? What happened in their life where their life took a hard turn right or left and got them in that situation? I knew a man that his wife died. He became an alcoholic and his whole life was decimated. You know, it wasn't that he committed a crime. Situations in life happen and people cannot handle them. They can't take the stress of life. They need help. And we need to be reaching down. Look at the bar case in Harlem where Mrs. Bob flew from Africa to Manhattan. Her son had been assaulted. She flew from Africa to Harlem to attend to her son. He had a head injury. She called for EMS. The police came and wound up shooting him in his head. That's insane. When there is a psychological or a mental situation, the police should not be the first responders there to aggravate the situation and then claim somebody did something and shoot them. The woman we saw on the news who was shot in her kitchen, and the cop is telling her to put the knife down. She was nowhere near him. The guy on the subway at New Lots Avenue, and the cops wound up, one cop shot the other and seriously wounded a passenger on the train. The regard for human life is no longer there. It's not there. And these cases they're beyond heinous. But when a person is arrested, they should not come out of prison worse off they were than they went in.
That's right.
It seems that's what they want to do. They want the prison industrial complex for black people. That's another place for slavery. Understand there's I had the other roll-in I got from Sharpton was they were complaining about the amount of money these prisoners are being paid by they're doing
corporations.
It's a
that goes back to the post-Reconstruction period. And they would arrest black men for
and put them
just not having a home. You know, you are a burden to us. You have no place to live. You were arrested. Vagrancy laws, they called it. And then they were rented out and put to work in fields. So it's just you got to look out for the double speak of the dominant culture. They use this term misspoke. The word is a lie. All right? That's a word they're not using anymore. Trump is a liar. A lot of these people are liars. They're not using the word lie. They're saying they're misinforming the people. They're not misinforming them, they're lying. There's no such thing. There is no such thing as a sexual assault. Not in legal terminology. You will never find a person that's served time for sexual assault. The word is rape. That's what it is. So there's a double speak with this dominant culture to have you think that something is not what it is, just as in solitary, and you're talking about selective housing or things of that nature. They'll flip the terms around, but nothing has changed. They're still doing the same thing. They're lying.
Did you gentlemen go through a labor thing? Did you have a job that was being that was being run by a corporation?
Of course, everybody knows about Corcraft. We all worked for Corcraft, which is an industrial manufacturing company, and half of these chairs and the desks and tables and stuff that you're looking at right now was made by incarcerated individuals, because this is their product. institutional furniture, hospitals and stuff like that there. So a lot of that stuff was crafted by the incarcerated individuals.
Yeah.
So they stopped you, no more license plates.
Auburn.
Yeah.
Auburn correctional
Don't forget the
facility.
13th Amendment,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
says you
yeah.
are a slave of the state if you're
That's right.
convicted
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
crime.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's how they put you back in slavery. Until you're free,
Yeah.
now we're going to put this law on the books to let you know when we pick you up for vagrancy and we find you guilty, you are a slave again.
Yeah. And there's a campaign, I believe it's called 13 Forward in New York State that's actually working to eradicate what they call prison slavery.
13th Amendment.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's campaigns all across the country that's tackling this issue. Actually, right now in California, they have like a proposition that's working on ending prison slavery as well.
And a lot of states are working on the Constitution of the states to take out that clause about, being convicted of a crime and, you know what I'm saying?
The exception clause.
Yeah, exception clause. So it's a lot of the states that's working on taking that out of their various state constitutions. Which will
The
probably
right to
create
vote is another
situation.
issue.
Yep.
People in New York, you can vote, although you've been convicted and finished your parole, but in many states, you cannot vote once you've been convicted. So your right has been denied you for life. So you're serving a life sentence. They're denying black people the right to vote in a lot of these key states.
Yep.
Keep the Republican Party moving with their agenda.
Yep.
But that has to change as well.
Yeah.
If a person has served their time, they should be a full citizen with all of the rights.
Isn't
voting
that
is
so
not-
here in New York?
Should not be the issue.
Isn't that-
Gentlemen, I have to go. I got a class. I've got to have a class I got to teach. So
Okay, man. Listen,
I will-
good
Oh,
hearing.
Graham, isn't that so now in New York?
Not for currently
In New
incarcerated
York,
people.
you can vote. A convicted felon can vote once they have completed parole.
Ah,
But
yeah.
in other states, you don't get the right to vote. Florida or Texas and other states, if you're convicted, you don't get to vote
Okay.
at all.
Yeah, there's only 2 states in the country where incarcerated people serving a prison sentence are able to vote, and that's Vermont, and I'm forgetting on the other
Maine.
one, and Maine. And those are like 99% white states, basically.
But they can't vote incarcerated,
Yeah,
convicted of a felony and everything.
They can vote.
they
They
can
can
vote. Yeah,
In
While
prison.
while
In
they're
prison,
That's
while they're
right.
serving a
Maine
prison
and
sentence.
Vermont, the only 2
Yep.
Wow.
while
I
they're
didn't know that.
incarcerated. Why we can't do that here in New York?
Imagine what kind of votes we get from prisoners.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is what
thousands.
they're afraid of. See, I think that the
Thousands.
whole thing about it is that part of the prison industrial complex is to take away your humanity and also to silence your voice in whatever way they can. Because some people go away and they get silenced because of the experience and the trauma, and they don't have that voice anymore. So that's a way of silencing, but also by that vote. Always attacking that vote since the 1963 Voting Rights Act. They've been coming after the vote to dilute it any way they possibly can to make it not where we, mostly people of color, will have the opportunity to vote. So what better way than to keep people silent, especially by incarcerated, by not allowing them to vote? Because imagine people incarcerated can vote. Could you imagine that we can turn this system upside down? Because these are issues that not only do you deal with while you're incarcerated, but you also going to have to deal with the laws and policies once you leave. So
Right.
part of the restorativeness, part of the reintegration should also include the right to people to vote while they're incarcerated under sentence.
All right. I've got one other video. Run that third video. It's about Rikers Island. And we'll close on that and start talking about the election coming up. I want to hear you gentlemen's version of what black people feel, how black men feel about Kamala. All right, play that video for me.
The 17th inmate to die in or immediately following release from jail this year joined prison reform advocates at City Hall to rally for the closure of Rikers Island. News 12's John A. Caldwell has more on what they're calling for.
Losing someone is one of the most undescribable pains my family, like many others, have ever experienced. And when you find out, it doesn't feel real.
The family of Eric Tavera is in anguish after he became the 17th inmate to die at Rikers Island, or shortly after being released this year. Today, his mother and sisters wiped away tears, his aunt falling to her knees.
I'm trying to be hard for my mom. She doesn't deserve to go. No mother. She has to think about burying their kid.
They joined dozens of prison reform advocates on the steps of City Hall today, demanding the jail complex be shut down.
What do you want? Justice! When do you want it? Now!
The Department of Corrections says the 28-year-old committed suicide on Saturday.
When will we say enough is enough? Another life lost will not occur.
The infamous jail has been highly criticized for years for the conditions inside and practices like solitary confinement.
It's Death Island. No one goes there and comes back the same. Too many people are dying.
Gina Pondexter lost her brother, Robert Pondexter, who died shortly after being released from Rikers back in September. She says she knows the heartache Tavera's family is facing all too well.
I asked how many more? I'm tired of asking that question. Now it's who's next?
The Department of Corrections responding in a statement saying, "Our deepest condolences go out to Mr. Tavera's family, friends, and loved ones in their time of grief. We take the health and safety of everyone in our custody seriously, and we are conducting a preliminary investigation into this death." Tavera's family has since filed a wrongful death suit against the city as they continue to mourn him. They hope he can be remembered as a caring soul who was dedicated to helping others. At City Hall, Johnny Caldwell, News 12.
Rikers. We're going to hear about this, you know, as the mayor is, well, you guys have a tough job, but it's an honorable one. It's necessary.
Well, we hope that we can continue to educate the public, you know,
well,
that's normally not in this arena, so definitely thank you for this platform and that allow us to help accomplish that mission.
well, we were doing
and for you
it
doing your
least-
work.
Oh, boy. It's a calling from God, and this is the backbone of us as a people. Now let's talk a little bit about the election. What do you gentlemen think about these questions about black men not wanting to vote for Kamala?
I think, for me, you know, I like to be, and I like to let other people be, right? And for me, if you feel that a person is not going to represent your particular interests in your cause, you're free to, you know, pursue that line of thinking, right? But then you have to look at, you know what I'm saying, the historical part of our engagement, our civic engagement in terms of who we elect that is supposed to represent our interests, who didn't represent our interests. So I think that to help individuals make an assessment in terms of one or the other, you know what I'm saying, that's up to your individual needs. Now, why a black man would not vote for Kamala Harris, I have no answer for that. But I'm thinking that there are different parameters, what they call measuring sticks, so to speak, for a person to come to some type of reasonable decision for themselves. You know, I mean, I've heard somebody, let me tell you something. When I go to Rikers Island, I'm registered people. I got people, I'm gonna vote for Trump. I'm gonna vote for Trump. I don't get into this back and forth with them about.
Why do they do that? They just want to make you angry.
Yeah, I mean, they ain't gonna make me angry because they ain't gonna do nothing to me. I just there to do what I'm there to do and offer you the opportunity to register to vote and to have a voice. And if you don't want to do that, cool. If you decide you want to do it and who you want to vote for is who you want to vote for, then you vote for that person. And for me, you know what I'm saying, I think that, you know, for as long as I think that we have been engaged civically and been able to vote and stuff like that there, and of course, you know, even, you know, skin folks ain't kin folks, so no matter. But there's other things that I think that a person needs to consider when you decide who you're going to vote for, you know what I'm saying? And whatever you feel is relevant to you, hey, I'm good. I'm going to be, and I'm going to let you be.
We were talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome, how we fight amongst each other. did a program last week about that. And I think this is exactly what's happening here, because we saw the same thing with Obama. And I know a lot of, Rev says, calls them Angawas, you know, people pack up and ready to go back to Africa, the homeland. What's the homeland of humanity? And that's for us to know. And I preach that all the time about the ancient Egyptians, and how they were black, everybody in the Bible was black. But knowing all that, teaching our children all that, that's on us. That we are in the situation that we're in, thinking of ourselves as the N-word, and N-word means lowlife. So you got Donald Trump, so a white N-word, as far as I'm concerned. It's the quality of character. Martin Luther saying you judge a person by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
That's right.
And I've been repeating that a lot lately, because I think black people in their own sane mind have to recognize that fact. You cannot become a hater. Anybody that hates all white people, I look at them like they're crazy. How can you do that? You know, everybody's not in the same category. Human beings are human, and they have human flaws. Like you admit up to your wrongdoing and clean your act up. I said, it doesn't matter what color you are.
That's right.
It doesn't really. We're all human beings, and with all the frailties of being human. And until you understand that and get away from color, period, and just accept people for the way they treat you when you want to be treated. And that's how you treat people. You're fair-minded and honest. Straight shooter. What's wrong with being that?
Right.
We're glorifying being a gangster, pimp, a drug dealer, and I mean, proud of it. I mean, having women sell their bodies, they're the human creators.
That's right.
So you're pimping your mama? The woman who created you? That's a joke. And you think that's, well, I'm getting a white man back for what he did to me.
Getting yourself back.
Oh, I hate all white people for what they did 200-300 years ago. That was for money. That was for money. It was all about money, making money. So you do bad to make money and kill your people. A drug dealer. Look how we are famous for being drug dealers, killing each other. So how do we look at each other? Now, how do black men look at Kamala? She's a woman. What can she do? She's not strong enough. I see the women being just as bad. Oh, how is a woman going to deal with Putin? You know?
Yeah.
I know Kamala could deal with him.
Yeah.
She was a head cop of California, and I know her record dealing with the banks. The banks offered all the housing people in California, I think it was $2 to $3 billion for the foreclosures and all the stealing they did. And she wound up getting 24 billion instead of the 3 they offered her. So she's a fighter, and all you have to do is listen to her for 5 minutes, and I'll see how you have a problem choosing from her and Donald Trump. I don't understand this. I don't understand why anybody has any sort of problem who they're going to vote for. I look to Trump to get votes from idiots. Not idiots. People who are self-centered, selfish, greedy, looking out for themselves only, and just like Trump. And I said it last week, I'll say it again. Trump is not human. He's not human.
He wasn't.
I'm serious. He's not human. The man is off. He's sick. You see what he's saying and all the stuff he's got. I mean, just the idea of cats and dogs being eaten by Haitian.
That was really crazy. That was wild. That was wild.
I mean, what is this, a movie?
Yeah.
It's gotta be.
A spectacle.
Yeah, that's right. He said it right. Spectacle.
That's it. He's a spectacle. That's what the man is. And I can't understand why anybody would vote for him. But lo and behold, you got people that lie just as good as he does, and people that want to own everything and do bad to us always. Well, we do it to ourselves too.
Yeah. We are accountable. We got to have a system of accountability.
We got to be accountable to us. And if we don't see through this genocide of the mind, he's got you still dancing and thinking of yourself as a low life, you know, that's what you're going to stay like. You are what you think you are. When you study your history, the exposure I've given to everybody here about the people in the past, the beginnings of creation, the Dogons, I mean, we've done many a show to show the beauty of being human, really. No color, being human. That's all we're asking for at Rikers Island. Be human.
That's all.
I don't care what color you are, be human. So what say you guys? That's from an old man. I'm an elder. I just think like that.
But it's okay though, because like I say, you know, through life's experience, as a individual and as a black man, our experiences are different, right? And in terms of what we believe in, you know, like you say, it's the content of your character. Never mind the color of your skin, because that's just, you know, surface, right? But it's, you know, your actions and how you treat your other fellow human beings. And if they think Trump is going to treat us fairly and equally and want the best for our survival and for our uplifting, I don't know where, I just don't know it. Like I say, you know, I'm going to be and I'm going to let them be. Because if that's where that's how you see yourself, but also see somebody else either for you or not for you, then I'm going to let you be. Because something wrong. I don't want to be with you. I'm going the other way. So that's why I will be and I will let you be.
How does it hit you?
Yeah, you know, I've seen some polls recently, you know that the black women and black men have, you know, steadily for decades have voted, came out strong for the Democratic Party. And then, you know, those people who I've seen making the argument that, you know, that they're not going to vote for the Democratic Party, you know, they say, oh, we survived under Trump for 4 years, we can handle him for another 4. And then we have a Biden administration.
You know people are saying that?
Yeah. And then you have a Biden administration where they felt the material conditions haven't changed. They came out for the Democratic Party again, you know, against Trump, and nothing has changed in their daily lives. You know, they haven't seen the benefits from it. So now it's a small number. It's very small, but the polls in battleground states like Pennsylvania it seems like the race is going to be really close. But it's a small population of black men, you know, that's saying that what I got to lose.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we're running out of time. Again, stay tuned for more information. The God in me loves the God in you, and
don't forget to vote.
Yes.
Don't
make sure you
vote.
And you don't need to. I don't need to tell you who to vote for.
Yeah, you don't vote, you're gonna miss the vote.
You vote for people that are gonna look out for you as a human being, and Trump is not human.
For sure.
That's a fact. Demonic as hell. God bless. Peace go with you. I'm right on the button, right?